Hello YouTube, Leonard Paulson here. Today we're going to be doing a video walkthrough on installing Ubuntu, which is a Linux distribution on VirtualBox. So in order to follow along with this tutorial, you're going to need a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and open up Chrome here. The first thing that you're going to need, let's get to a regular search here. First thing that you're going to need is an installation of VirtualBox if you don't already have it. Some of you that have come across this video obviously may have already installed it, but for those of you that haven't, it's pretty straightforward. Go to Google, type VirtualBox, and the very first thing that comes up is downloads for VirtualBox. Go ahead and click on that. And then you're basically presented with a few options for the most recent version, and the options are just operating system dependent. So select your operating system. The installation is pretty much the same between operating systems. If you know how to install any other program, you can install this. Go ahead and select your install, click on it. It's going to download an executable, or if you're on a Mac like I am, it's a DMG, and then just open that up, run the installer, and you're done. Next thing you're going to need is an installation of Ubuntu. This works too if you want to download, a different distro or a different operating system. You can still follow along and just replace this with, whatever operating system you would like. For those of you that are following along for Ubuntu specifically, go ahead and you can click here. For those of you that are going to be following along for the remainder of my videos in this series, which is going to be on installing OpenFOAM, you may want to follow along exactly how I'm doing, because the installation procedures for that can differ a bit. For those of you that are downloading Ubuntu for use with other software other than OpenFOAM, make sure to look through the documentation and maybe some of the forums and see compatibility between issues. The reason I'm selecting the version that I do, which let's go ahead and click on this download Ubuntu desktop, which I'm going to be installing 14.04.2 LTS. As you can see, for example, there's a 15.04. Now you could install this if you're using other stuff, but the libraries that we're going to be using for OpenFOAM, or those of you maybe trying to install other things, you need to make sure it's compatible. Okay, now while OpenFOAM is compatible with other versions, the installation that I found is the cleanest. I've went through a few of them, was for this version. Okay, so that being said, make your decision based on the knowledge I just gave you, and let's carry on. Go ahead and click the download button here. Once again, I'm not going to download it because I already have it, optical disc. So close this out once you have those. Next thing you're going to need to do is go ahead and launch VirtualBox. Okay, as you can see, obviously I already have a few virtual machines on here. I have Kali Linux, Server 2012, CentOS. I already have an Ubuntu installation, but we're going to do another one. Windows 10, installed that recently to check that out. Kind of cool, I guess. A lot like Windows 8, super buggy still, but go ahead and click New. Give your name and operating system. So, name, give it something descriptive. I'm going to say Ubuntu, and because I already have an Ubuntu, we're going to add on to it, and I'm going to say OpenFOAM. And this is going to be the fresh installation that I'm going to be using for the rest of the videos in this series on installing OpenFOAM. Okay, make sure your correct operating system is here. As you can see, if you click on this, and not that you want to change this if you're following along with me, but if you were installing something else, as you see, you can select other operating systems. So for those of you installing Ubuntu, make sure this is a Linux, make sure this is Ubuntu 64-bit. As you can see there, if you're doing the 32, there's a 32, and of course here's Red Hat, Gentoo, Fedora, SUSE. If you're using something else, select it. Go ahead and click Continue. Okay, this here is asking you how much memory you want to allocate to your virtual machine. Because I'm going to be doing an OpenFOAM installation and I have 16 gig of RAM available, I like to set this pretty high. You can change this after, so don't worry about it too much, but I know from experience that I want a bit more, so I'm going to raise it up to 8 gig. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and click Continue. Next step is to set up a hard drive. Create virtual hard drive now is going to be the selection you're most likely going to want if you're following along. Click Create. Now it's going to ask you the file type you want. For those of you that don't know what the rest of these are, For those of you that are curious, you can go ahead and do some research on your own for sake of moving forward in the tutorial. And those of you that just aren't sure what you want, keep the default selected of VirtualBox disk image and click continue. Two choices are presented here: dynamically allocated or fixed size. The differences are superfluous depending on your system. If your system's like mine, it almost doesn't matter from a size perspective, but it does a bit from a performance perspective. So fixed sizes perform a bit better. Okay, so if you're doing something like I'm going to be doing with OpenFOAM, I suggest you select fixed size. The reason I say on another hand it doesn't matter a bit is because you still ultimately have to set a maximum size. But kind of where the difference is that a dynamically allocated doesn't initially block all that off. So say you set a max, you could set a maximum size of 50 gigabytes, but you'd only use 8 at first, maybe, or 6.5, really. Go ahead and read these and make your decision. If you're just not sure, go ahead and follow along with me. Click fix size, and then here it's going to ask you how much space you want. When you go to install Ubuntu, okay, it's going to have a minimum requirement of 6.5 gigabytes. So the first time that I did an Ubuntu installation specifically for OpenFOAM, when I started doing the OpenFOAM install, as I got quite a ways into it, I had actually, without even thinking about it, was just like quickly doing an install for some quick get up and running test purposes. And as I said, I had just clicked through defaults on these, and I left it at 8 gig, and I ran out of space while I was trying to install, so I had to start over from scratch. So because I know that, and armed with that knowledge now, I am going to select 20 gig. I have a fairly large hard drive. Once again, you make this decision based on your needs, as well as the knowledge I've just provided you and what your system resources available are. Go ahead and click create once you've made a decision. And it's going to take a few seconds here. So now we want to select our virtual machine. Most of you obviously won't have all these other ones I do, so just make sure the one you do have is highlighted. And then come up here to this gear icon, which is your settings. Click on that. We're going to change a couple things in here. For other systems, other operating systems, there are some of these things you need to come in here and worry about. For us, there's just a couple things we're concerned with at the moment. First is system, okay? And in system, this is system resources. So as you can see, this is where you could come in after and change your memory. If you needed to change that, you can change your boot order, which would be similar to you going into your BIOS, your chipset, pointing devices. Okay, don't worry about any of this right now unless you want to change your RAM. If you changed your mind, feel free. For the rest of us, click processor. If you're going to be following along with the OpenFOAM tutorials, change this to 4. You could change it to more, but I don't suggest it. You want to make sure that there's adequate resources left for your native system. And what I mean by that, like I'm running Mac OS X and I have a VirtualBox on this. Well, while I'm running my virtual machine, I don't want to give all my resources to the virtual machine because, ultimately the VirtualBox itself has to run, and everybody knows, I think, that there's a lot of software running in the background of your computer, and if you allocate all your system resources and then whatever you're doing in your virtual machine actually needs them and peaks out, you'll lock your system up and crash it. So moving on. You have display. You guys, the rest of you that are curious, feel free to go through this. Maybe I'll do a more in-depth tutorial on VirtualBox one day, but I'm trying to keep this tutorial a bit short for those of you that want to just get up and running. So click storage, okay, and you have your storage tree here. So here you see that drive that we created, okay. So as you can see, it's a virtual drive. It's actually set aside 20 gig. Okay, so that's the drive. And now this, you see a CD. So what this is let's imagine this virtual machine. It's exactly what it sounds like. It's like you built a computer and now you're trying to install an operating system on it. So we stuck our hard drive in, and that's here, right? But we don't have an operating system. So this is the way to remember. You come to your storage, look for your CD drive, and we want to stick a DVD in there, right? A virtual one, of course. But so come over here and click on this CD icon over next to IDE secondary. And if you read the little yellow box as you hover over it, the tooltip, it says choose a virtual CD. So click on that. As you can see, because I've been doing a few of these, I have these other ISOs that are still here. Okay, from recent stuff I did. You won't have these, most likely, if you haven't installed any yet. So you'll have this option. They'll choose a virtual CD, DVD disk file. Okay, and if you click on that, and then, I have it on my desktop, for example. So you might have downloaded yours to a different place. Go ahead and select it. Click Open. Okay, and now it says Ubuntu 14.04.2. Yours might say something different if you're using something different, but go ahead and click OK. Alright, so we're moving right along. Now all you need to do is go ahead and press start. And what this is going to do is you're basically powering on your new computer, your virtual machine. So let's go ahead and move this out of the way. Okay, sorry, a little off my screen capture area. These warnings you can clear. It's just saying auto capture keyboard options turned off. They're VirtualBox things that aren't pertinent to us right now. Okay, so I'm going to try to burn through the installation pretty quickly. If any of you have any questions, more detailed questions, feel free to throw them in the comments, as anything else. But for those of you that are just trying to get through this as quickly as possible, let's bang through it. So we have English. We're just going to click install. This is where that 6.5 gig comes in, okay? But hopefully most of you selected more if you had it available. Download updates while installing, yes. Install this third-party software, yep, that's for MP3 audio codecs. Go ahead and click continue. Erase this and install Ubuntu. Okay, this is just the partition that we selected. It's not the rest of your computer. So yes, this is what you want. No, you do not stand any risk of hurting the rest of your computer. Click install now. Click continue. That's just one of those, hey, do you really want to do this screens? Okay, select your time zone. I am on the West Coast in the United States, so that's correct. Continue. Select keyboard layout, English US, that's appropriate for me. If you're something different, go ahead and select that. Computer's name, okay, oops, don't know how to spell my own name. And click continue. These options here, obviously these are self-explanatory. The encryption, don't encrypt it unless you have a need to. If you're doing the open foam stuff where we need some extra performance, definitely don't encrypt it. Once again, unless you have some private stuff that you're really that worried about somebody getting on your virtual machine for, then by all means go for it, but it's not really necessary. Alright, so after a few minutes, the installation should complete, and then it's going to tell you need to restart. Go ahead and click Restart Now. And the machine's going to reboot. Press Enter. Okay, go ahead and enter your password. Log in. Alright, so welcome to Ubuntu Linux. Now, sure, number one question, most of your minds, you're like, man, why is the window so small? And many of you probably even try to do this. You're like, man, what's going on here? Okay, well, what you gotta do is you gotta install VirtualBox guest editions, okay? Otherwise it's gonna look like this. So what we need to do is come up here to devices, click insert guest edition CD image, okay? This comes with the VirtualBox installation, so I'm gonna click that, and then this comes up and it's a little off, but basically you can drag it over like I did. Click run. Go ahead and enter your password because it needs permission to do this. Click authenticate. Alright, and now it's going to install guest edition. So same thing, if you install other operating systems, you'll need guest editions as well. So then press the return key. Alright, so now, man, still doesn't seem to be doing anything. Okay, well, you gotta restart it, so just come up here, terminal, or, you know, for those of you that don't like command lines, you can come up to the gear icon and shut down here. Myself, I'm a command line guy, so power off Linux command. Oh, sorry. Sudo power off, because you need to be root to do that. Okay, so what happened? It disappeared. Alright, well, open VirtualBox back up and go ahead and press start. Now, you could have just restarted too. You know, there wasn't any particular need to actually power it all the way down. A restart's fine as well. I don't know, habitually just when I'm trying to restart, I tend to power down. You don't have to. Alright, well, you know, I hope that was helpful. You know, if you see stuff like this, you know, it can be a little laggy sometimes, you know, especially when you're trying to resize the display. This, as I said, we have to remember we're not on a native machine, it's a virtual machine, but yeah, it works pretty well. So hope that was helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down below in the comments, and as I said throughout the video, I'll do my best to answer. And for those of you that are following on to the rest of the videos in my series on OpenFOAM, I'll see you over there. Alright, thanks, bye.